All right, guys, so today we are going to do a lesson in slow flight. Before we get into the mechanics of how to do slow flight, let's talk about why we need to learn slow flight. So obviously, you want to make sure that you have a very solid understanding of how the aircraft feels when you are getting near stalling. So where does that happen? Typically when you are in the pattern on short final or base,
traffic 727,
or maybe on the departure leg. And so, you know, if you are close to the stall, you want to make sure that you understand what exactly is going on, what it feels like, and so forth. So to enter slow flight, your examiner is going to expect you to maintain a heading. So I would suggest that you bug your heading with your heading bug, and also going to expect you to maintain an altitude. So again, I would expect you to bug that altitude with your altitude bug. So we're going to start off at, we're going to just go back, we'll start off at 7,450 feet. And so we're going to slow the aircraft down, bug our heading there of 098, and check, make sure there's no traffic around us, which there's not. So we're going to start slowing the aircraft down. And as we do that, of course, we're going to need to pitch up ever so slightly to maintain that altitude. Once you get in your flaps safe zone, you start to deploy your flaps. So we're going to start off with 15 degrees here, and then as our speed starts to slow down, and I'm not flying, by the way, in the Remos Light Sport, the Remos GX. So speeds here are probably going to be slower than whatever certified aircraft you're flying. All right, so now we're in the point where I can put in all the flaps, and I'm going to slow right on down to 50 knots. A nice slow flight for this particular plane. So I don't know if this camera, the rear camera, is going to be able to see it, but here on the PFD, so you see I'm on my heading. I'm ever so slightly actually above my altitude, and so I'm getting down close to 50 knots. So in slow flight, you got a left hand, that one's your speed hand if it's on the stick, if you're sitting on the left side of the plane. You got a right hand, that one is your altitude hand, because that's the throttle. So you're going to adjust your speed with pitch. So if you're too fast, like right now I'm doing 55 knots, I'm going to trim that up a little bit. I'm getting a little low, so I better add some power in. I'm actually about 100 feet low. So we'll add a little bit of power back in there. And here on my vertical speed indicator, which is a little magenta line, you can see it now. I have a positive rate of climb. We're cruising along at around 51 knots. Very important in slow flight to stay coordinated. So in this case, step on the ball. I mean, for me, that's a little bit of right rudder. There we are. We're just about back at our altitude. And we're maintaining, essentially, we'll just close up just a little bit more, 50 knots. And keeping an eye out for traffic, of course. All right, so now once you get settled in, pretty easy to maintain, so we'll ease that power back just a little bit so we can stop climbing. Now your DPE is probably going to say something like, hey, I want you to turn right to heading 150. So in my case, what I would do is I would turn my heading bug over to 150 so I don't forget what heading I'm going to. And then I would start with probably about a 5-degree bank. Because in slow flight, I'm not in a hurry to do anything, and the more you increase your angle of bank, the more you're going to change the coefficient of lift, and the more the plane's going to want to sink. And then you're going to have to add power to compensate for that. So if you just take your time, see here, I'm doing about a 8 or 9 degree angle of bank. I'm maintaining altitude, I'm maintaining speed, and there is my heading, 150. I actually went past it by a whole degree while I was talking to you guys. So the next thing the DPE might do is they might say, okay, on this heading now, I want you to descend at this airspeed, so in this case, 50 knots. I want you to descend 500 feet. So we're going to go down by pulling up power, and we're going to maintain pitch, or adjust pitch, I should say, as necessary to maintain that 50 knots. And be sure to use trim, because trim is very much your friend when it comes to maintaining pitch. If you're pitched right, your hands off the controls, and the nose does not drop. So pitch is, or trim is kind of like what I like to call the cruise control of an airplane. Power steering and cruise control sort of mixed into one. So here we are descending at around 250 feet per minute. We're about 52 knots, so a little bit more back trim there. We're still more or less on our heading within 5 degrees. Go back on our heading, 7,300 feet. We'll pull just a little bit more power. We're going to put some carb heat on here. Again, if you're a little slow, just drop the nose just a touch. If you're a little fast, raise that nose just a touch. 200 more feet to go. And in the interest of brevity of this lesson, we're going to say we're going to level out at 7,000. So just before 7,000, I'm going to add some power back in, push that carb heat back in. So you're going to have downward momentum due to gravity. So there's 7,100, so I'm adding in some throttle because I don't want to go below it. That's going to pitch up there. Okay, there I've stopped my descent. Pull some power back out. Oh, a little bit off my heading here, so I'll correct for that. And by the way, when you're in a check ride with the DP, if you notice that you've made a little mistake, oh, I realize I'm a little bit off my heading, correcting for that now. What they really want to see is that you know what you are doing and you are on top of the airplane. All right, so there we are. We're going to lower that nose just a little bit to pick up a little bit more speed, and we're there. Oh, we're descending, so we're going to add a little bit more power. Again, this is your altitude hand. This is your speed hand if you are sitting on the left-hand side of the aircraft. And then when it's time to recover from slow flight, if your DPE says to do that, start adding power and then picking up your flaps, not all at the same time, one notch at a time. Maintain a positive rate of climb. Now you're going to need to take some trim out of it. Add that power back in, and then you're going to be back at whatever altitude he wants you to be at. Whatever RPM is your cruise RPM in the aircraft that you're flying. And that's it. Slow flight is done. If you enjoyed this video and you would like to see more lessons like this, please be sure to become a subscriber. And if you have questions or comments about this video, I would love it if you'd smash that like button and leave a question or comment right down below, and I'll do my very best to answer it for you. Thank you so much. Have a good day.